Hey everybody, this is Dr. Langdon, board certified pediatrician, mom of 6 and grandmother to 3, with today's topic of pertussis or whooping cough. You may have heard of this because the CDC just recently released a new report that we're at an all-time high for the past 10 years. Now, don't be too alarmed by that because there is a natural ebb and flow of this, and maybe we just happen to be at the top of one of those waves. Hard to say. Certainly we were much lower during the COVID times because we were all separated from one another, so infections weren't being passed back and forth quite so easily. So let's talk a little bit about pertussis. One of the problems is that even though the vaccine is excellent and important and critical, the antibodies produced from the vaccine don't last a very long time. Part of that is because the vaccine we use now is acellular, or it's just a piece of the cell wall, not the entire cell. The very old one was whole cell, C-E-L-L, not a warehouse wholesale cell. And that created a lot higher fevers at the time, but probably the antibodies lasted a little longer. So now it's a much easier vaccine, not that super high fever afterwards, but we have trouble making the antibodies last an extremely long time. That's why it is recommended now that you get your Tdap booster every 10 years. Tdap stands for tetanus, big T, diphtheria, little d, a little A for acellular, and then a big P for pertussis. You can't even get just the TD vaccine anymore because it's so important, if you happen to be getting your tetanus booster, that you also get a booster for pertussis to get those antibody levels up. Now, one of the reasons it is concerning that we're at this 10-year level high is because there has been a slight decrease in the amount of children who are getting fully vaccinated for kindergarten in public schools. That is, the exemption rate has gone up just by less than a percentage, but still that's a lot when you consider the whole entire country. Here's why that matters. I hope you guys understand we're all in this together. We're all a society. And if there are big pockets of unvaccinated people, they could be a reservoir for this disease. Someone who had pertussis could pass it to one of those folks, and those folks don't have pre-made antibodies to instantly respond to it so that they never get sick and pass it on. Instead, they do get sick and they do pass it on. And that can continue happening and increase the incidence of the infection in the society as a whole. Now, pertussis is treatable. We treat it with antibiotics in the macrolide category like Biaxin or Zithromax. But little tiny babies can be severely affected by this. So that's why this matters so much, particularly to me, a pediatrician. So I would like to talk to some of you moms out there. Now remember, I'm on the other side of this pregnancy equation. I'm the one receiving the baby to take care of the baby. So I am not an OB, but from the baby side, let me tell you, your OB will offer you a Tdap vaccine during each pregnancy. And I am here to encourage you to get that because it turns out that the most common person who infects a newborn baby who's extremely fragile and susceptible to these infections is its primary caregiver. And most of the time, the primary caregiver is the mom. So there's two reasons you need the vaccine. If you have the Tdap vaccine, then you're safe from catching pertussis yourself, so you won't get sick. That's a bonus. And if you don't have it, you won't pass it to your newborn. That's the important part here. But also, when you get the Tdap vaccine, your own body creates antibodies against pertussis. And the form of antibodies that cross through the placenta into the baby to protect the baby at its most vulnerable, fragile state as a newborn is called IgG. So these IgG antibodies cross the placenta, protect the baby. That is huge and important and absolutely critical. So I urge you to get your Tdap vaccine with every single pregnancy. Now, some additional vaccines will be offered to you during this pregnancy, and I would highly recommend those as well. They have always been a flu, which has always been offered. Always recommend it. Very important for your own well-being and the baby's, because the baby can't get the flu vaccine till it's 6 months old. And so for those first 6 months, you can try to protect it some with your own flu vaccine when pregnant. The other one is COVID, of course. Proven safe, proven effective. The only kind of vaccines we can't give during pregnancy are live virus vaccines. Those would be ones like measles, mumps, rubella, varicella, or chickenpox. So those you can't get. The others you can. So we would recommend getting, obviously, Tdap. That's what we're talking about. Flu, COVID. And the newer one on this list is RSV. So between about 32 weeks and 36 weeks, you can get the RSV vaccine to help make real antibodies, IgG to cross the placenta to protect your baby from RSV, which is hugely important. If you don't get it, the baby can then get a monoclonal antibody if your pediatrician has it in stock. That's pretty expensive. The RSV vaccine is pretty straightforward and typical and easier to get, and then the baby's covered. So if it's offered you, absolutely get the RSV vaccine between 32 and 36 weeks. I hope this answered some questions for you guys, primarily about pertussis, but also I hope to emphasize the importance of vaccines during pregnancy to protect the newborn, because that is so important. Please feel free to ask me any questions if you have them. Thanks so much for listening.